The morning sun filtered through our kitchen windows as I stared at the transfer papers. My hands trembled slightly, the weight of betrayal sitting heavy on my chest. I never thought Jason would actually go through with it. A lateral move. He'd called it in front of our friends at dinner last week. Natalia needs the experience managing a struggling branch. What he didn't say was that he was shipping me off to the dusty outskirts of town because I'd called him out on his office affair with his assistant. What he didn't mention was that this was punishment, pure and simple. You see, my husband isn't just my husband. He's also the regional director at Pinnacle Mining Corporation, where I've worked for the past 8 years. I started in accounting, worked my way up to operations management, and last year, I was on track for the executive team, until I found those text messages on his phone. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The branch he was sending me to was our company's laughingstock. Located in Red Rock Valley, an old mining town that had seen better days, it hadn't turned a profit in over 5 years. The building itself was a crumbling relic from the 1950s, and most employees had requested transfers years ago. The skeleton crew that remained was demoralized and unproductive. Perfect place to stash a troublesome wife. "You leave on Monday," Jason said coldly, not looking up from his laptop. "I've already arranged temporary housing." "This is ridiculous," I said. "You can't mix our personal issues with company business." He finally looked up, eyes narrowed. "I'm making a sound business decision. Your performance reviews have been adequate, but not exceptional. The board supports this move." Of course they did. They were all his golfing buddies. "And what about our home? Our life here?" I asked. "You should have thought about that before throwing accusations around," he replied. "Besides, it's only a 2-hour drive. You can come back on weekends, if he wanted me to." That night, I packed my essentials with tears streaming down my face. 15 years of marriage, ending like this. Part of me wanted to quit the company altogether, but I'd worked too hard to get where I was. And frankly, I needed the money. Jason had always controlled our finances, and I was shocked to discover how little I had in my personal accounts. So Monday morning found me driving to Red Rock Valley, a town I'd only visited once during a company tour years ago. The population sign was faded, the number scratched out and rewritten several times, each iteration smaller than the last. The branch office sat at the edge of town, an uninspiring concrete building with the company logo half fallen off. The parking lot had more weeds than cars. "Welcome to exile," I muttered to myself. Inside wasn't much better. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, illuminating dusty desks and outdated equipment. A sleepy-looking receptionist glanced up as I entered. "Can I help you?" she asked, clearly not recognizing me. "I'm Natalia Rivera, the new branch manager." Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, Mr. Thornton didn't tell us when you'd be arriving." "Well, here I am," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm Diane," she said, standing to shake my hand. "Let me show you to your office." Office was a generous term for the small room with peeling, wallpaper and a desk that looked older than I was. A lone cactus sat in the corner, somehow still alive despite the grim surroundings. "Previous manager left this," Diane said, nodding toward the plant. "Said it was the only thing that thrived here." "Great. How many staff do we have?" I asked, setting my purse down. 7, including me," she said. "Used to be 23, I nodded, my heart sinking further. "And operations?" "We process paperwork for the inactive mines in the area. Mostly environmental compliance reports, property tax filings. Sometimes we handle equipment storage and maintenance records. So not just exile, but boring exile." "I'll need to meet everyone," I said. "And I'll need all the financial reports for the past year." Diane looked surprised. You actually want to work? What do you mean? She shrugged. Last couple managers just showed up for appearance's sake. Everyone knows this branch is being kept open as a tax write-off. Corporate just waiting for the right time to shut us down completely. I felt a flash of anger, not at Diane or the situation, but at Jason. He hadn't just sent me to a failing branch, he'd sent me to a dead one. My career would stagnate here, and eventually, when the branch closed, he'd have the perfect excuse to let me go. Well, I said, straightening my shoulders, I'm not like the previous managers. After meeting the small team, 2 accountants, an operations coordinator, an administrator, a maintenance man, and a part-time clerk besides Diane, I spent the afternoon reviewing the dismal financial reports. The branch was operating at a significant loss, processing minimal work with outdated systems. At 5 o'clock, Diane knocked on my door. We usually clear out by 5, she said. Not much happens after hours in Red Rock. I nodded. I'll be heading out soon, too, just trying to get up to speed. After she left, I continued reading through files, trying to understand how this branch had fallen so far. Around 7, my stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I packed up my things and headed to the temporary housing Jason had arranged, a small furnished apartment above the town's only diner. The smell of fried food wafted up through the floorboards, making my stomach growl louder. The apartment was basic, but clean. I dropped my bags and went downstairs to get some dinner. The diner was surprisingly busy for a Monday night. I took a seat at the counter, ordered a burger, and tried not to make eye contact with the curious locals. You must be the new mining lady, the waitress said as she set my food down. I looked up, surprised. Word travels fast. Not much else to talk about around here, she said with a friendly smile. I'm Mel. Natalia, I replied. And yes, I'm the new branch manager at Pinnacle. An older man sitting a few stools down snorted. Branch manager? Of what? That place hasn't done real mining business in decades. I turned to look at him. He was in his 70s with leathery skin and sharp eyes that suggested he missed very little. And you are? I asked. Frank Hodges, he said. Worked for Pinnacle for 43 years before they shut down the operations here. Now I just come, to Mel's for the pie and to complain. Despite myself, I smiled. How long ago did the actual mining stop? They closed the last active shaft in '97, he said. Used to be 5 working mines in this valley. Good copper, some silver. But the company said they were tapped out. I nodded, taking a bite of my burger. And they were? Frank shrugged. That's what the fancy geologists from corporate said. But miners, we have our hunches. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. What kind of hunches? I asked, my interest piqued. He leaned in conspiratorially. The East Ridge never got a proper survey. There was an accident back in '95, tunnel collapse, 2 men injured. After that, they rushed the assessment and declared it empty. But my buddy Carlos swore there was a rich vein they never touched. I made a mental note of this but didn't put much stock in it. Old miners often had stories about the mother lode that got away. After dinner, I went back to my apartment and called my sister Lena. How bad is it? She asked immediately. Pretty bad, I admitted. Jason really found the perfect punishment. You could quit, she suggested, not for the first time. Come stay with me in Phoenix until you figure things out. The offer was tempting, but my pride wouldn't let me. I can't let him win that easily. This isn't about winning, Nat. It's about your happiness. I sighed. I know, but I've put too many years into this company. I at least want a decent reference when I leave. We talked a while longer before hanging up. I tried calling my daughter at college, but she didn't pick up. Things had been strained between us since I'd confronted Jason about the affair. Madison had always been Daddy's little girl. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, determined to at least make the most of my situation. I was surprised to find the maintenance man, Roy, already there. "Morning, Ms. Rivera," he said. "Just fixing that leak in the break room." "I appreciate that, Roy. And please, call me Natalia." He nodded, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why'd they send you here? Usually they send the managers nobody wants elsewhere." His bluntness was refreshing after years of corporate doublespeak. "My husband is the regional director," I said simply. "We're having issues." Roy's eyes widened slightly. "Ah, that explains it." "Explains what?" "The call I got yesterday. From Corporate Maintenance Division. They want a full property assessment. Never asked for one before." I frowned. "What kind of assessment?" "Building integrity, land condition, estimated value. The works." He shook his head. "Usually means they're getting ready to sell." My blood ran cold. Jason wasn't just exiling me. He was planning to shut down the branch entirely. Probably as soon as he could push the paperwork through. "When are they coming?" I asked. "That's the thing," Roy said. "They're not. They asked me to do it. Said they wanted it off the books for now. So Jason was being sneaky about it. That made sense. If word got out that Pinnacle was closing more branches, it could affect stock prices. Stock prices. Roy, I said carefully. Could you hold off on that assessment? Just for a week or two? I'd like to get my bearings first. He nodded slowly. Sure thing. Not like this place is going anywhere. As the day progressed, I dug deeper into the branch. Records. There wasn't much actual mining data. Most of that would be at corporate headquarters. But there were property maps, old surveys, and maintenance records for the abandoned mines. During lunch, I remembered what Frank had said about the East Ridge. On a whim, I pulled out the property maps to see what mines had been there. The maps showed 5 main mining operations: North Star, Blue Canyon, Red Rock, Maine, Sullivan's, and Eastridge. The first 4 had extensive documentation, surveys, production reports, closure certifications. But Eastridge was surprisingly thin. Just basic property boundaries and a few safety reports. Frank's words echoed in my mind. They rushed the assessment. After work, I drove out to look at the old mining sites. The landscape was beautiful in a rugged way. Red rock formations against the clear blue sky, scrubby vegetation clinging to life in the harsh environment. Most of the old mines were clearly marked with safety barriers and warning signs. When I reached the easternmost property, I noticed something odd. The barriers looked newer, and there was a padlocked gate across the access road with a fresh, "No trespassing" sign. Why would an abandoned mine from the 90s have new security? I took some photos with my phone and headed back to town, my mind racing with questions. At the diner that evening, I spotted Frank again and slid onto the stool next to him. "Mind if I ask you a few more questions about the mines?" I asked. He looked pleased at my interest. "Fire away." "Tell me more about Eastridge. What kind of accident happened there?" Frank's expression darkened. "Tunnel collapse. My friends Jake and Carlos were surveying a new section when it came down. Jake got out with a broken leg, but Carlos was trapped for nearly 12 hours. When they finally got him out, he wasn't the same. Kept saying they'd found something big, but nobody believed him. They thought it was the oxygen deprivation talking. And what happened to Carlos? Died 3 years later. Heart attack." Frank shook his head. "But he never changed his story. Said there was a rich copper vein, maybe even gold, deeper in the mountain than they'd gone before. Said the company knew it too, but after the accident, they didn't want to invest in the proper supports to extract it safely." I showed him the photos I'd taken. "Any idea why they'd have new security on an empty mine?" Frank studied the pictures, frowning. "That's odd. Those weren't there last year when I took my grandson up to see where I used to work." Could they be doing new surveys? Without reopening the branch for operations? Doubtful. He handed my phone back. Unless what? Unless they're planning to sell the rights. Mining rights around here have gotten valuable again with new extraction technologies. If there is something worth digging up, Pinnacle might be getting ready to offload it to one of the big international firms. That night, I could barely sleep. If Frank was right, and there were valuable minerals still untapped in the East Ridge, mine, it would explain the secretive property assessment Roy had mentioned. Was Jason planning to quietly sell off potentially valuable mining rights before discarding both me and the branch? It would be just like him to find a way to profit from my punishment. The next morning, I arrived at the office with a new sense of purpose. I needed more information, and I knew just who to ask. "Diane," I said, stopping by her desk, "who handles our property records? The actual land deeds and mineral rights documentation?" She thought for a moment. "That would be Ted in accounting. He handles all the tax stuff related to our properties." Ted turned out to be a nervous man in his 50s who looked startled when I appeared in his office doorway. "Ms. Rivera, what can I do for you?" "I'm trying to get a complete understanding of our assets," I said smoothly. "I'd like to see the property deeds and mineral rights documentation for all the mines, especially East Ridge." He blinked rapidly. "East Ridge? There's not much there, just basic ownership records. I'd still like to see them. I'll have to request some of that from corporate," he said. "We don't keep everything here." "That's fine," I replied. "Just get me whatever you can." As I turned to leave, I noticed a flash of panic cross his face. He immediately picked up his phone. I pretended not to notice and walked back to my office, but inside I was buzzing with suspicion. Ted was definitely hiding something. By mid-afternoon, Ted brought me a thin folder. "This is all we have on East Ridge," he said. "Just the original purchase documents from the 1950s and the closure certification from 1997. I thanked him and waited until he left before opening the folder. The documents inside were exactly what he'd described, nothing enlightening. But as I was about to close the folder, I noticed something. The closure certification had been signed by Jason Thornton. My husband had personally certified that the Eastridge mine was depleted and safe for closure, the same mine that, according to Frank's friend Carlos, still had valuable minerals. I immediately called Roy. "Roy, I need a favor," I said when he answered. "How hard would it be to get into the East Ridge mine property?" There was a pause. "You're not thinking of going out there, are you? Those old mines aren't safe." "I just want to look around the property, not go inside any tunnels." Another pause. "I still have the old access keys. But Ms. Rivera? Natalia? There's something you should know. I got another call from corporate today asking about the assessment. They're pushing hard for it." "Did they say why?" "No. But they mentioned your husband by name, said he's personally interested in the results. So Jason was checking up on me, probably making sure I wasn't causing problems before he made his move." "Thank you for telling me," I said. "Can you meet me after work? Around 6? He agreed, and we arranged to meet at a gas station on the edge of town. The drive to East Ridge took about 30 minutes on increasingly rough roads. Roy's truck handled it better than my sedan would've. "This is as far as we can drive," he said, stopping near the padlocked gate I'd seen yesterday. "We'll have to walk the rest." He unlocked the gate with a key from a massive ring full of them, and we walked up the access road. After about half a mile, we reached a flat area with several small buildings, old offices and equipment sheds. "Main tunnel entrance is over there," Roy said, pointing to a dark opening in the hillside, sealed with a metal barrier. "But there's an observation platform this way that gives a good view of the whole property." We climbed up to a metal platform that had once been used to load ore into trucks. From this vantage point, I could see the entire East Ridge operation, or what was left of it. What exactly are we looking for? Roy asked. I'm not sure, I admitted. Something that would explain why this particular mine might still be valuable. We spent about an hour examining the area, but nothing stood out. As the sun began to set, bathing the red rocks in golden light, I sighed in disappointment. Maybe I'm chasing ghosts, I said. Roy had been quiet for a while, staring at something in the distance. Maybe not, he said finally. Look over there. He pointed to a spot about half a mile away where the setting sun glinted off something metallic. What is that? I asked. Let's find out. We made our way carefully down from the platform and hiked across the uneven terrain. As we got closer, I could see it was a small equipment trailer, partially hidden behind a rock formation. That's new, Roy said. Wasn't here the last time I did a property check 2 years ago. The trailer was locked, but through the dusty windows, we could see what looked like geological survey equipment, core samplers, testing kits, and a computer. Someone's been exploring, I murmured. On the side of the trailer, half covered by dust, was a logo, TerraCore Geological Services. I took out my phone and snapped several photos, then did a quick search for TerraCore. They were a private geological survey company that specialized in mineral rights valuation. Roy, I said slowly. I think someone's been doing secret surveys out here. He nodded grimly. And I bet I know who authorized it. As we were heading back to the truck, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Rivera? This is Martin Webb from TerraCore Geological Services. I understand you've been asking questions about the Eastridge property. My heart raced. How did you get this number? Your husband gave it to me. He suggested I call you directly. There was an edge to his voice. He also mentioned you might be confused about your role at the branch. And what role is that exactly? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Administrative caretaker until the property disposition is complete. He paused. Mr. Thornton was very clear that you have no authority to investigate the mining properties themselves. My blood boiled. Well, Mr. Webb, as the current branch manager, I believe I have every right to understand the assets under my supervision. That's not our understanding of the situation. I suggest you speak with your husband before taking any further actions regarding Eastridge. The call ended, and I stood there fuming. Everything okay? Roy asked. No, I said. But it will be. On the drive back to town, I explained what I'd learned so far. Roy listened intently. So you think your husband certified a valuable mine as depleted, and now he's planning to somehow profit from selling it? That's my working theory, I said. But I need proof. Back at my apartment, I searched online for any information about Pinnacle's holdings in Red Rock Valley. Most results were old news articles about the mine closures in the 90s. But one recent headline caught my eye. Mining rights in Western states seeing surge in value due to rare earth mineral demand. The article explained how old copper and silver mines were being reevaluated for previously overlooked rare earth minerals, elements crucial for electronics, renewable energy, and defense industries. Some defunct mining properties had sold for hundreds of millions based on new geological surveys. Could that be what Jason was hiding? Had new technology revealed valuable minerals at Eastridge that weren't detectable or profitable to extract in the 90s? I needed expert help, someone who understood mining geology but didn't work for Pinnacle. And I knew just who to ask. My college roommate, Priya, was now a professor of geological engineering. We hadn't spoken in a few months, but she picked up on the second ring. Natalia, this is a surprise. Priya, I need your expertise, I said, and explained the situation. She listened thoughtfully. It's definitely possible. Rare earth minerals weren't economically viable to extract until recently. So many companies didn't even test for them 25 years ago. And if your husband personally certified the mine closure, it would be a massive conflict of interest. If he's now arranging a private sale, I finished. Not just conflict of interest, Priya said. Potentially securities fraud, if he's using non-public information to arrange deals that should benefit shareholders. My mind was spinning. This wasn't just about my marriage or my career anymore. If Jason was doing what I suspected, it was illegal. I need to get my hands on those survey reports, I said. Be careful, Nat, Priya warned. If there's real money involved, people might not want you digging around. After hanging up, I sat staring at the wall of my small apartment, the realization hitting me. Jason hadn't sent me to this failing branch as a simple punishment. He'd sent me here to keep me distracted and occupied while he secretly prepared to sell off potentially valuable mining rights that properly belonged to the company and its shareholders, and he was using my exile as the perfect cover. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated me. And now I had the chance not just to save my career, but to expose a fraud that could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The question was, how far would Jason go to stop me once he realized I knew the truth? I looked out my window at the dark streets of Red Rock Valley, a town that had nearly died when the mines closed, a town that might have a second chance if those mining rights were properly developed. My punishment might just turn out to be the greatest opportunity of my life. If I could stay one step ahead of my husband, tomorrow would be challenging. But for the first time since arriving in Red Rock, I felt a surge of determination. Jason thought he could discard me like an empty mine. He was about to discover just how wrong he was. Husband transferred me to failing branch as punishment, not. Knowing it sits on 200 Malauerser mining rights, I woke before my alarm, my mind already racing with plans. If Jason was trying to orchestrate a private sale of valuable mining rights, I needed evidence, and quickly. My first stop that morning wasn't the office, but the county records department. Small towns have their advantages. The clerk was helpful, and didn't ask why the new manager of Pinnacle Mining wanted to see all historical documents related to the East Ridge property. These go back to the original claim in 1932, she said, placing a large folder on the counter. Take your time. Most of the documents were what I expected. Ownership transfers, mineral extraction permits, environmental assessments. But one caught my attention. A geological survey from 1996, just before the accident Frank had mentioned. The report wasn't complete, but the sections that were there mentioned anomalous readings in the eastern section that warrant further investigation. The survey was signed by a geologist named Margaret Chen Dart. I took photos of everything with my phone and headed to the office, arriving later than usual. Diane looked relieved when I walked in. There you are. Mr. Thornton has called 3 times. Already. My heart skipped. My husband called here? Yes. He seemed upset that you weren't in yet. So Jason was keeping tabs on me. That confirmed my suspicions that something bigger was happening with Eastridge. If he calls again, tell him. I'm in a meeting with local officials, I said. It wasn't entirely a lie. I had been with a county clerk. In my office, I closed the door and called the number listed for Margaret Chen in the old report. To my surprise, she answered. Dr. Chen speaking. Dr. Chen, my name is Natalia Rivera. I'm the current branch manager at Pinnacle Mining's Red Rock Valley office. There was a pause. Red Rock Valley? I haven't heard that name in years. I'm looking into some historical data about the East Ridge mine, and I found your survey from 1996. I was hoping you might be willing to talk about it. Another pause. Longer this time. Why the sudden interest in a mine that's been closed for nearly 30 years? I decided honesty was my best approach. I have reason to believe the mine might not be as depleted as was reported, and that someone might be trying to profit from that information privately. I see. Her tone shifted, becoming more guarded. Ms. Rivera, I'm not comfortable discussing this over the phone, but I will say this. My survey was never completed. There was pressure to wrap things up quickly after the accident. Pressure? From whom? I think you know the answer to that. Your last name is Rivera, but I'm guessing you're connected to Jason Thornton? My breath caught. He's my husband. We're separated. That explains a lot. She sighed. Look, I'm in Phoenix now. If you want to talk, it would have to be in person. Phoenix was a 3-hour drive. I could come this weekend. Saturday, 2 p.m. Arizona Geological Society building. Ask for me at reception. She hung up before I could respond. I sat back, processing. This new information. Dr. Chen clearly knew something about Eastridge that made her uncomfortable, something connected to Jason. My office phone rang, startling me. It was Diane. Your husband is on line 1, she said, sounding nervous. I took a deep breath and picked up. Jason. Where have you been? His voice was tight with barely controlled anger. Working. That is why you sent me here, isn't it? Don't play games, Natalia. I got a call from Martin Webb at TerraCore. He said you were trespassing on sealed mining property yesterday. I was doing a property inspection with our maintenance manager. As branch manager, that's part of my job. Your job is to keep that office running until further notice, he snapped. Nothing more. The mining properties are off limits. They're dangerous and liability concerns. Is that the only reason they're off limits? I asked, pushing my luck. There was a pregnant pause. What exactly are you implying? Nothing. Just trying to understand the parameters of my punishment. His voice turned cold. This isn't punishment, Natalia. It's reality. You're lucky to still have a job at all after the scene you caused. Now stay away from Eastridge and the other mining sites. That's a direct order. The line went dead. I sat there, my suspicions now fully confirmed. Jason was definitely hiding something at Eastridge, and he was worried I was getting close to discovering it. I spent the rest of the morning going through every file in the office that mentioned Eastridge. Most contained the same limited information. Operational, reports up until 1995, then minimal documentation about the accident and closure. At lunch, I went to the diner and was pleased to find Frank there again. Mind if I join you? I asked. He gestured to the empty seat across from him. Been expecting you after our talk yesterday. I slid into the booth and lowered my voice. Frank, what do you remember about a geologist named Margaret Chen? She was doing surveys at Eastridge right before the accident. His weathered face lit with recognition. Dr. Chen, sharp lady. She was excited about something she found in the east shaft, kept taking extra samples, staying late. Did she ever tell you what she found? He shook his head. Not specifically, but I overheard her arguing with the site manager the day before the accident. She wanted to bring in specialized equipment, something about confirming unusual concentrations. He shut her down, said the budget wouldn't allow it. And after the accident? She was gone within a week. Company said they were bringing in a different team to finish the assessment. He leaned forward. But they never did. They just closed it up based on incomplete data. I nodded, pieces falling into place. Frank, I need to ask you something important. Your friend Carlos, the one who was trapped, did he ever mention specifically what he saw down there? Frank's eyes darted around, making sure no one was listening. He told me, but I thought he was confused from the accident. He said they hit a vein with rainbow rocks. His words. Said they sparkled like nothing he'd seen before. My pulse quickened. Rainbow rocks? Yeah. I figured he meant some kind of quartz with mineral inclusions. But later, after I retired, I read an article about rare earth minerals. Some of them can look like that. Colorful, iridescent. Rare earth minerals, just as I'd suspected. One more thing, I said. Do you know anyone who worked with TerraCore Geological Services recently? They might have been doing surveys in the area. Frank's expression darkened. Yeah, I know them. Bunch of outsiders showed up about 6 months ago. Very secretive. Said they were doing environmental assessments, but they were taking core samples, not water or soil tests. Before we could continue, the diner door opened and Ted from accounting walked in. When he saw me with Frank, he froze for a moment, then quickly turned and left. Friend of yours? Frank asked. Colleague, I said, and apparently Jason's informant in my office. That afternoon, I approached Diane with a careful request. I need access to the digital archives, I said casually. Specifically anything related to the mine closures. In the 90s, she looked uncomfortable. Those would be on the secure server. I don't have clearance for that. Who does? Just Ted, and he's very protective of his systems. I smiled. Would he notice if someone used his computer after hours? Her eyes widened. Ms. Rivera, are you asking me to… I'm not asking you to do anything, I said quickly. I'm just curious about security protocols. Diane hesitated, then lowered her voice. Ted never logs out, and he has a sticky note with his password under his keyboard. He thinks nobody knows. I nodded, thanking her without words. By the way, what time does the cleaning crew come through? Around 8 p.m. They start in the back offices and work forward. Perfect. I stayed late that evening, telling the others I was catching up on paperwork. When everyone had left, I waited until 8:15 when I heard the cleaning cart rolling down the back hallway. Then I slipped into Ted's office. Sure enough, his computer was still on, screen locked. And just as Diane had said, taped under his keyboard was a yellow sticky note with Pinnacle T3D 2021 written on it. I logged in and began searching through the secure server files. Most were routine financial records, but there was a folder labeled Property Assessments, Confidential. Inside were dozens of files, including one named Eastridge REM Survey 2024, REM, Rare Earth Minerals. I opened the file and found myself looking at the results of a comprehensive geological survey conducted just 4 months ago. The report confirmed significant deposits of neodymium, dysprosium, and other rare earth elements vital for electronics and green technology. At the bottom was an estimated valuation, $175,225 million for the mineral rights alone. My hands shaking, I forwarded the file to my personal email and then carefully closed everything, making sure to leave no trace of my search. As I was logging out, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I quickly turned off the monitor and ducked beneath the desk. The door opened. Through the gap between the floor and the desk drawer, I could see polished dress shoes, not the work boots of the cleaning staff. The person stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then, mercifully, they turned and left, closing the door behind them. I waited 5 agonizing minutes before peering out. The hallway was empty. I slipped out of Ted's office and back to my own, heart pounding. From my own computer, I checked my personal email. The report had come through. I downloaded it, then deleted the email entirely. On my drive back to the apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling I was being followed. A pair of headlights stayed consistently behind me, maintaining the same distance, no matter how I varied my speed. When I pulled into the diner parking lot, the car drove past, a black SUV with tinted windows. I couldn't see the driver. Inside my apartment, I called Priya again. I have the survey, I said without preamble. You were right. Rare earth minerals. Estimated value up to $225 million. That's… wow. She sounded stunned. And your husband is trying to arrange a private sale? I think so. He's working with a company called TerraCore. I know them, she said. They're often hired to validate mineral rights before major acquisitions. But Natalia, if the company already knows about these deposits, why wouldn't they just develop them themselves? It was a good question. Maybe because officially, The mine is depleted and closed. Reopening it would require public disclosures, shareholder approval, environmental impact studies. Whereas a private sale could happen quietly, Priya finished. But it would still be highly unethical, possibly illegal. I need to meet with Dr. Chen, I said. She was the original geologist who suspected there was more to Eastridge back in the 90s. Be careful, Priya warned again. With this much money at stake, people might go to extreme lengths to protect their interests. After hanging up, I sat by the window, watching the street below. The black SUV drove by twice more. I was being watched. Next morning, Friday, I arrived at the office to find Ted waiting anxiously by my door. Ms. Rivera, he said, his voice tight. We need to talk. I invited him in, my face carefully neutral. What's on your mind, Ted? He closed the door. Someone accessed my computer last night. Security logs show files were opened. So much for leaving no trace. That's concerning. What files? Confidential property assessments. His eyes bored into mine. The system logs the user, Ms. Rivera. It was my login, but I wasn't here. I maintained my calm exterior. That is strange. Could you have forgotten to log out? No. He was sweating now. And there's something else. Mr. Thornton called. Me this morning? He's coming here. Today. My blood ran cold. Jason is coming to Red Rock? Ted nodded miserably. He said it's for a routine branch visit, but we both know it's not routine, I finished. When will he arrive? His flight lands at noon. He'll be here by 2. 4 hours. That's all I had to figure out my next move. Thank you for telling me, Ted, I said, dismissing him with a nod. Once alone, I considered my options. I could confront Jason directly, but without backup, it would be my word against his. I needed allies and more concrete evidence of wrongdoing. I made 2 quick calls, one to Roy, asking him to meet me immediately, and one to Frank, asking if he knew anyone who had worked with Carlos, the miner who'd been trapped in Eastridge. Roy arrived within 15 minutes, looking worried. What's happening? I told him everything. The rare earth minerals, the secret survey, Jason's imminent arrival. That explains the property assessment request, he said. They're getting ready to sell. And I need to stop them, I replied. Not just for my sake, but because it's wrong. This branch, this town, deserves better. Roy nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Access to Eastridge again, and quickly. I need photos and samples before Jason arrives. He hesitated. That's risky, and possibly illegal. I know. I'll go alone if you prefer. No, he said firmly. I'm coming with you, but we need to be smart about this. My phone rang. It was Frank. I found someone, he said without preliminaries. Carlos's nephew, Miguel. He has his uncle's personal effects, including a journal he kept. Says Carlos wrote about what he saw in the mine before the collapse. Where is he? Works at the auto shop on Main Street. Said he can meet you in 20 minutes. I thanked Frank and hung up. Change of plans, I told Roy. We're making a stop first. Miguel turned out to be a serious man in his 40s, with the same weathered look as his uncle must have had. He met us behind the auto shop, away from curious eyes. Frank said you're investigating Eastridge, he said, sizing me up. I am. I believe there may have been valuable minerals there that the company covered up. He nodded, as if this confirmed something he'd long suspected. My uncle believed the same. After the accident, he was never the same physically, but his mind was sharp. He knew what he saw. Miguel handed me a worn leather journal. He documented everything. The company tried to say he was confused, but he wasn't. He drew what he saw. I opened the journal to find detailed notes and sketches of tunnel layouts, geological formations, and most importantly, descriptions of the rainbow rocks with their precise location in the mine. This is exactly what I needed, I breathed. May I borrow this? Keep it, Miguel said. My uncle would want the truth to come out. With the journal in hand, Roy and I headed to Eastridge. We parked well away from the main gate, using a maintenance access path that Roy knew about. The TerraCore trailer was still there, but now there was a pickup truck parked beside it. Someone was on the property. We need to be careful, Roy whispered. If they catch us here? I nodded. Using Carlos's journal as a guide, we made our way to an area he had marked, an outcropping where the same mineral vein visible inside the mine supposedly reached the surface. There, Roy pointed. That rocky shelf. The coloration is different. He was right. Among the typical red rocks was a streak of darker material with faint iridescent qualities catching the sunlight. I took multiple photos and, using a small hammer Roy had brought, collected several samples of the unusual rock. We should go, Roy said urgently. I hear a vehicle. We hurried back to Roy's truck and drove away just as another black SUV pulled up to the main gate. Back in town, I had just enough time to return to my apartment, hide the journal and samples, and prepare for Jason's arrival. At exactly 2 p.m., he walked into the branch office. Jason looked exactly as he always did. Perfectly tailored suit, confident stride, disarming smile for everyone except me. The staff watched nervously as he made his way to my office. Natalia, he said coolly, closing the door behind him. You've been busy. I maintained my composure. Just doing my job. We both know that's not true. He sat down across from me. You've been poking around in matters that don't concern you. Valuable mineral rights that the company officially abandoned, but are secretly being prepared for private sale. I think that does concern me as branch manager. His expression hardened. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? Rare earth minerals. Estimated value of $175.125 million. TerraCore preparing a discrete valuation package for potential buyers. For just a moment, Jason looked genuinely shocked. Then his face settled into a cold mask. You always were too clever for your own good, he said quietly. But this time, you're in over your head. Am I? Or are you the one who's in trouble? Securities fraud carries serious penalties, Jason. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you can prove anything? All you have are suspicions and maybe some files you shouldn't have accessed. Against the word of a regional director and the full legal team of Pinnacle Mining. I have more than you think, I said, bluffing slightly. His eyes narrowed. Such as? The original geologist's testimony. Physical samples from the site. Carlos Martinez's personal journal documenting what he found before the tunnel collapse. That last one hit home. Jason's face paled slightly. Martinez was confused after the accident, he said quickly. Everyone knows that. Do they? Or is that just what you told everyone because his discovery threatened your plans? Jason leaned forward. What exactly do you want, Natalia? Money? A better position back at headquarters? I want the truth, and I want this branch, this town, to get what they deserve from those mining rights. He snorted. How noble. And completely naive. Do you have any idea who's involved in this deal? People far more powerful than either of us. Then they should be exposed too, I said firmly. Jason stood up, straightening his tie. I came here to offer you a dignified exit, a generous severance package, a positive reference for your next job, somewhere far from Pinnacle. And if I refuse, then things will become unpleasant. He moved toward the door. You have until Monday to make your decision. After that, events will be set in motion that can't be stopped. After he left, I sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Jason hadn't denied anything. In fact, he'd basically confirmed everything I suspected. But his threat was clear. And knowing Jason, he rarely bluffed. I needed to act quickly. Tomorrow I would meet with Dr. Chen in Phoenix and hopefully gain a crucial ally. But I needed more. Irrefutable evidence that would stand up to Pinnacle's legal team. As I was leaving the office, Diane caught me by the arm. "Ms. Rivera," she whispered. "Be careful. Mr. Thornton asked Ted to copy all your emails and computer files before he left. So they were building a case against me, probably to discredit anything I might reveal." "Thank you," I said sincerely. "And please call me Natalia." She nodded. "There's something else. When your husband was waiting for you earlier, I overheard him on the phone. He mentioned something about accelerating the timeline and finalizing by Tuesday. That gave me 4 days to stop whatever Jason was planning. That night, I barely slept. The black SUV drove past my apartment 3 times. A clear intimidation tactic. In the morning, I took precautions. I copied Carlos's journal, took additional photos of the mineral samples and saved everything to a secure cloud account. Then I packed an overnight bag for my trip to Phoenix. As I was about to leave, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello? Ms. Rivera? This is Martin Webb from TerraCore." Again. His voice sounded strained. "I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to meet with you today to discuss the Eastridge property properly. My suspicion meter went off the charts. I'm afraid I'm not available today, Mr. Webb." "This is important," he insisted. "We should clear up any misunderstandings before things escalate further." "I agree. But it will have to be Monday." He paused. "Monday might be too late, for both our sakes." "What do you mean by that?" "Just that certain decisions have already been made. Decisions that can't be unmade." His tone sent a chill down my spine. "But there might still be a place for you in the new arrangement, if you're reasonable." "And if I'm not?" Another pause. "Then I can't guarantee your continued employment or safety." My hand tightened on the phone. "Is that a threat, Mr. Webb?" "A reality check. People with certain talents are valuable. People who create problems are not." After hanging up, I quickly threw a few more items into my bag. The conversation had confirmed my worst fears. This wasn't just about illegal business dealings anymore. There was something darker happening, something that made people feel comfortable making veiled threats to a branch manager. I called Roy. "Change of plans. I need to leave town immediately, and I might need backup." "What's happening?" he asked, alarmed. "I just got what amounts to a threat from TerraCore, and Jason has moved up his timeline. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon." "I'll pick you up in 10 minutes, he said without hesitation. "We'll take my truck, less conspicuous than your car." While waiting for Roy, I sent an encrypted message to Priya with all the evidence I'd gathered so far, asking her to keep it safe. Then I called my sister Lena. "If you don't hear from me by Sunday night, call this number," I said, giving her the contact information for an investigative journalist I'd once met at a company function. "Tell them everything I've told you." "Natalia, you're scaring me," Lena said. "Maybe you should just walk away from this." I thought about it, about taking Jason's severance offer, starting fresh somewhere else. It would be the safer choice. But then I thought about Frank and the other former miners who'd given their health to Pinnacle, about Diane and the other staff who would lose their jobs when the branch closed, about the town of Red Rock that deserved to benefit from the minerals beneath its soil. "I can't walk away," I said simply. "Some things are worth fighting for." As Roy's truck pulled up outside, I took one last look around the small apartment that had been my exile and my awakening. Jason had sent me here to punish me, to put me somewhere he thought I couldn't cause problems. Instead, he'd given me the perfect opportunity to expose the truth. And despite the danger, despite the uncertainty ahead, I felt more alive than I had in years. It was time to reclaim my power, not just from Jason, but from everyone who thought they could exploit others for profit and get away with it. As we drove out of town, the sun was rising over the red rocks of the valley, painting them in brilliant gold and orange. Those rocks held secrets, wealth, and corruption in equal measure. By the time the sun set on Monday, I was determined that those secrets would be exposed to the light, whatever the cost. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.